So, welcome to this positivity bias where we're going to tell some stories, some words of inspiration in honor of this time. So, we're leading up to Lag BaOmer. Today is actually, last night we counted 18 days of the Omer. So, Lag BaOmer is in exactly 15 days. And during this period, it says that 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva passed away for not having enough Ahavat Israel, lo na'agu kavod ze b'zeh. They didn't have enough honor and respect for one another. And so 24,000 of his students died in a plague. And that ended on Lag BaOmer, which is the holiday we celebrate. So Lag BaOmer, besides that, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai passed away. If you look today, historically, what is the most well-attended event in the world? It's Lag BaOmer. This year, I don't know what's going to happen because of the coronavirus, but hopefully Israel will have become back to normal by then. It's another 15 days' time. I know it's wishful thinking, but hopefully. But last year, the year before, at least 500,000 Jews go up to the grave of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. It's a tremendous event. Incredible time. A lot of simcha, a lot of joy. So Lag BaOmer is called Yom Hilula de Rashbi, which means the wedding day of Rashbi. It's the day he passed away. Now, Shavuot is considered the wedding of the Jewish people to God. Shavuot is the giving of the Torah, which is Nigla, the revealed part of the Torah. And Lag BaOmer is considered the holiday where we received Pnimiyut Torah, the Zohar, Kabbalah, and all that. So Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai's anniversary of his death is called Yom Hilula de Rashbi, which means the day of his wedding. Now that's pretty strange to call the day a person dies the day of his wedding. Why would we call the day of his wedding Yom Hilula, the day he died? Well, how does that make sense? Now, I know some people think that when they get married, they die. God forbid such a thing should happen. Wedding is the most joyful, most joyous time. It's an incredible time. It's so happy, people dance. It says the grandparents and great-grandparents, and for 3 generations come from even if they passed away, they come and enjoy the wedding festivities. They come from the Garden of Eden. So why would we call the day Yom Hilula de Rashbi, the day he died? Why would we call it a wedding? You know, there's a joke for the 40th wedding anniversary of a couple. So the wife comes home and she's expecting her gift from her husband. She comes home and the poor husband, he forgot all about it. So his wife asks him, did you buy me a gift for our 40th wedding anniversary? So the poor guy forgot. So he says, my love for you is so deep. It's deep down that it cannot be expressed in any gift, and therefore I didn't buy you any gift. So she looks at him and she says, okay. And then he says to her, did you buy me any gift for our 40th wedding anniversary? So she says to him, I bought you a grave. So he says to her, why a grave? So she says to him, because deep down, you're good. So the question which we have is, why is the wedding, the day Rashbi died, why is that called his wedding day? So the answer is, the Talmud says, Omar le Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shmuel says to Rabbi Yehuda, and I quote from here, it says, Shinana, sharp one. Shmuel says to Rabbi Yehuda, sharp one. Chtof ve'achol, chtof ve'ishti. Chtof means like grab and eat, grab and drink. De alma dazlinan mine, because this world in which we are in, kehilula dami, it's called, it's like a wedding. Hi Rob, so nice to have you here tonight. Yeah, Chag Sameach. So it's like a wedding day. So Shmuel said to Rabbi Yehuda, chtof ve'achol, which means grab and eat, grab and drink, because this world is like a wedding. Rashi explains in the Talmud, and I'm reading from Rashi, Im yesh lecha mamon lehenot atzmecha, if you have money to enjoy, al tamtin ad lemachar, don't wait until tomorrow to use it. Shema tamut v'shuv ein lecha ana, because maybe you'll die tomorrow and you won't have any pleasure, so use your money today. That's what Shmuel was telling Rabbi Yehuda, use your money today. De alma da'azlinan mine, because this world that we're going from, Kehilula dami is like a wedding. Hayom yeshno, just like a wedding passes by so quickly that today it is. Ulemachar inenu, and tomorrow it isn't anymore. Lechupa sholech, just like a chuppah, kala and a bride and a groom are waiting so long for their wedding, so the wedding passes like so fast. So the question is, if you want to tell me that life is short, why use the analogy of a wedding? Why don't you say, life is so short, it's like a passing train. Life is so short, it's like a car driving 120 miles an hour. There are so many analogies, so many examples we could give for saying that life is short. And yet we find that Shmuel says to Rabbi Yehuda, life is so short, it's like a wedding. What's the two questions we have so far? Question number one is, why is the anniversary of the death of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai called Yom Hilula de Rashbi, the day of his wedding? And then question number two is, why did Shmuel, when Shmuel said to Rabbi Yehuda, this world is so short, life is so short, he uses the analogy of a wedding. It's so short, like a wedding. Why? So the answer is, let's look at marriage for a second. Let's dissect and analyze marriage. You see, what happens when a bride and a groom get married? So a single guy, in New York there's 40,000 singles, single guy, single girl. Seemingly they are not limited. A guy goes out, comes back when he wants. For a single person to actually leave his house or her house, you know what they do? They actually just walk out the door and say goodbye. But when you have children, when you have a wife, there's no such a thing. There's no leaving the house without being interrogated. Where are you going? What are you doing? Without putting the kids to bed. I can't even give this class without putting the kids to bed first. So life, when you get married, is very limiting. You have to tell somebody, you have to be responsible, you are responsible for another person. So it's very limiting. As a single guy or single girl, you could do what you want, when you want, how you want, as opposed to when you are married, that there are rules, there are restrictions. You cannot just do what you want, you're responsible for another person. So marriage on the one hand is very limiting. But on the other hand, if you look at anything that a person can build, so you see that, he or she builds something, but then it's gone. You build a company. The company, God willing, will last for the next generation and the next generation, but it's lav davka, it's eternal. Look at our great-great-great-grandparents, and you'll see that they built tremendous companies, but they're not around today. Right? Hopefully the economy is going to remain good, we'll pass it on to the next generation. But the only thing that is eternal is children. You have children, your children have more children, and then these great-grandchildren and great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren. That's how we've existed for thousands of years. Close to 6,000 years, the only thing that our ancestors have accomplished, which is eternal, is children. So on the one hand, when a boy and a girl get married, they are limiting themselves. But on the other hand, through limiting themselves, they become unlimited. They are able to create something eternal and everlasting. In other words, only through limiting yourself are you able to build something eternal. This is the tremendous oxymoron, so to speak, of wedding, of marriage. It's the irony of marriage, that by limiting yourself, you're able to create something eternal and everlasting. And the truth is that the same thing is with the other wedding, the wedding of the soul to the body. You see, when the neshama, when the soul is wed to the body, when the soul comes down into the body, it's married to the body, it's limiting. Right? The soul is used to luxuries, is used to spirituality. The soul wants to study Torah. The soul wants to do a mitzvah. As I explained many times, it says that a person can live in this world for 120 years and have all the pleasures that this life can offer, and it's not even worth a fraction of a second of true pleasure in paradise. So the soul wants true pleasure, true bliss, which is getting, which is spiritual, which is godly. On the other hand, the body, what does the body want? The body wants instant gratification. That's all the body wants. So the soul is limiting itself. But on the other hand, only by the soul being in this world, being married to a body, can the soul achieve eternity. The soul can reach a level much, 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 much higher than it can dream of without coming down to the body. And I'll give a parable of this. It says, once upon a time there was a king who had a daughter. And the daughter, he wanted to marry her off. But every time the king brought a potential suitor to marry the daughter, to meet the daughter said, oh, this guy, I don't like his nose. This guy, I don't like his ears. This guy, I don't like his personality. This guy's not sophisticated enough for me. This guy's too simple for me. This guy, I don't like him. This guy, there's no chemistry. So eventually the king, exasperated, he says to her, the very next person to walk through the doors of the palace is going to marry you. I don't care. I promise you the next person to walk in here is going to be your husband. So the king thought when he said that then the very next person will be another potential, great guy on her level. As it happens to be, the local peasant, the local farmer was the next person to walk into the property. So when the king saw this, the king, true to his word, he forced his daughter to marry the peasant. So the peasant, the farmer, couldn't believe his luck. He's married to this beautiful princess. He takes her to his home, which is a shack in the field. And the princess is used to living a life of luxury. She's used to having silk bed. She's used to having fine feather pillows. And what does she sleep on? A bed of straw. Because that is the only thing that her husband was able to offer her. Shalom Peri, Erev Tov. So that's the only thing her husband was able to offer her. So the queen, the princess, was used to going on vacations to Vegas and going gambling and going to Broadway shows and watching movies. And she was used to having slaves do her every whim and every word. She used to have everything. And here she is, sleeping in the house of this farmer and having nothing. Poverty-stricken. For breakfast in the morning, lunch, dinner, she's used to having luxuries. And what is this guy feeding her? Nothing. So what happened is, the princess was depressed. She was sad. And her farmer, the husband, couldn't realize, didn't understand what's wrong with his princess. So after 30 days, he decides he's going to buy his wife a gift. A tremendous gift he's going to get her to cheer her up. So he said, I'm going to get you a gift, the most expensive thing that I could possibly dream of. What did he get her? He came home with his gift, wrapped it up. He told her, close your eyes. I'm going to give you this gift. She closes her eyes. And he puts this tremendous gift in her hands. She opens her eyes. And what does she see? She sees a delicious tomato. In her hands was a tomato. And she's like, tomato? This is the gift? I expected an expensive piece of jewelry. I expected something that, something of luxury. And she starts to cry. And her husband, Nebuch, the poor guy, doesn't even realize why she's crying. Here he is. In his world, he got her the most precious item that he could possibly think of. A tomato. And what does she do? She cries. Because they're living in two different worlds. She's living in the life of luxury. And he's living as a farmer, as a peasant. And this, explain our sages, is a parable for the soul versus the body. You see, the soul is used to living a life of luxury. The soul is used to Torah and mitzvot. The soul is used to spirituality, is used to godliness. And every time the soul is with the body senses something is upset inside of him or her. So the body goes to get another dollar bill, goes to get another car, goes splurges on another vacation, trying to placate the deep pain in his or her heart somewhere inside. But that's not what the soul wants. The soul wants to do a mitzvah. The soul feels the pleasure of a mitzvah. It says that every time a person doesn't do a mitzvah, does something which is not related to Torah and mitzvot, it's painful for the soul, just like when the brothers sold Joseph into slavery. Actually, every time we do a sin, it's as if we're selling our souls into slavery. So on the one hand, the soul feels like there's a tremendous limitation happening by getting married to the body. On the other hand, through doing good deeds in this world, יפה שעה אחת בתשובה ומעשים טובים בעולם הזה, מכל חיי העולם הבא. It's an hour of good deeds in this world is worth infinitely more than all the entire paradise. How is that possible? Because when you in this body, and you do a mitzvah, you help another person, you feed the poor, you give charity, you call up your mother and say, how are you, fulfilling the mitzvah of kibud em, you are doing something which is infinitely greater than what the soul could accomplish in paradise. That is the irony of marriage. Right? In a physical marriage between a boy and a girl, so on the one hand, marriage is very limiting, right? You have to be in a certain place, confined in a certain space. But on the other hand, through marriage, you're able to have children, which is something eternal and everlasting. So too with the soul and the body. Through the soul being married into the body can accomplish feats which are beyond. And this is what the Talmud means. When Shmuel says to Rabbi Yehuda, he says, you're living in this world, grab every moment of every day, grab it. No matter what life throws at you, grab it, because it's like a wedding. Just like a wedding, on the one hand, it's limiting, but on the other hand, the potential, what you gain from the wedding is eternal and everlasting. The wedding of the boy and the girl and the wedding of the soul and the body, so to grab every moment. And that is also what Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, the day of his death, why it's called a wedding, because Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai was the one who taught us Kabbalah. He taught us the Zohar. He taught us Pnimiyut HaTorah. He taught us to look at every moment of every day and grab it. Why am I sharing this with you today? Because we're living in painful times. The coronavirus, we've been in isolation for 6 weeks, almost 6 weeks, 3 days, 2 hours, 1 minute. And we don't know when this is going to end. I know in Israel things are starting to look a little better, but we really don't know what's going to happen. You know, they tell the story in 1967, Mrs. Swerdlov was living today in Crown Heights. So she was then, she went on a mission to Detroit to spread Shabbat candles and spread awareness of Shabbat candles at the behest of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And on the way back, they got stuck in the airport in Detroit because there was a snowstorm. So Mrs. Popak was one of the leaders of the group. She calls the Rebbe's office and told the secretary, we are stuck. So the answer came back from the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, I don't understand the meaning of the word stuck. So Mrs. Popak is explaining, stuck, it means like we stuck. So the secretary cut her off. He says, the Rebbe knows what the word stuck means. But the Rebbe said, there's no such a thing as a Jew being stuck. No such a thing. If God put you in the airport in Detroit, then there's a reason for it. You're not stuck. God ordained that there should be a snowstorm, and you are now, so to speak, stuck in that airport to spread goodness and kindness. And so with the 20 women who were stuck with her in the airport, they went around to every single passenger in the airport spreading Shabbat candles and awareness of Shabbat candles. Until today, in 2020, there are women who light candles because those 20 women were stuck, so to speak, in the airport. There's no such a thing. There's no such situation as being stuck. If God put us in a situation where there's a coronavirus and we are isolated at home, and the only way we can communicate is through technology, through Facebook and through internet and through Zoom, then there's a reason for it. And the reason is because this is the way we're supposed to live. So stuck in this situation, we need to do the best out of this situation. And even though it's temporary, Rabbi Avraham Glick from Melbourne, he married a girl from Worcester, from Massachusetts. So right after his wedding, he went to work doing Chabad activities in Massachusetts. And after a couple of years, he got an offer to go back to Melbourne to serve as a rabbi there. So with permission and the blessing of the Rebbe, he was going to go back to Melbourne. So there was a couple of months where he was like in the interim, like he's going back, but he's not yet going back. Like, he was like in the interim. When you like that, it's like, it's like when you're catching a flight in a couple hours. You can't really focus on anything because you're flying today. So at a meeting with the Rebbe, he told the Rebbe, like, I feel like I'm disorientated. And the Rebbe told him like this. The Rebbe said that when the Jews traveled in the desert, so they traveled with the Ohel Moed, right? When the clouds went up, that is when they kind of dismantled the Mishkan, the sanctuary, and then when the cloud settled, so to speak, in a place, it was a sign that they had to resettle where they were. Now, the Mishkan, the sanctuary, had to be built. It had to be assembled and disassembled every single time they traveled in the desert. Right? So sometimes, some chanayot, some camping, they lasted for 19 years. In one place, they lasted for 19 years. But there were other times where they traveled again and again and again. There were some of the travelings, they were in a place for one day. Meaning, they had to assemble an entire sanctuary for one day, for 24 hours that they would be there. And after 24 hours, the cloud came again and told them, okay, it's time to travel again. So they had to disassemble the entire thing. And what the Rebbe was explaining was that if God put you somewhere in the desert where you have to be for one day, then you have to assemble the whole entire sanctuary and act in your mind as if you're going to be there an entire lifetime. It doesn't matter the fact that you're only there for a day. Because in God's mind, you're there for a day, you're there for a mission, you're there to accomplish something. So the fact that the coronavirus has temporarily isolated us and shut us down and put us in a situation where we are temporarily in our homes, it's a sign that is where our shlichut, that is where our mission is supposed to be. And that's what the Rebbe told Rabbi Glick. He said, there's no such thing, you're temporarily between Worcester and Melbourne. It doesn't matter. Every moment of every day, you have a mission. You were put in this world for a mission, like Shmuel said in the Talmud. Chtof ve'achol, chtof ve'shati. Every moment of every day, no matter what the situation you find yourself in, you are supposed to make the most out of it. Just like the Jews were in the desert, could be even for one day, that to assemble and disassemble this massive structure. And even if it's a crisis, there was a story. There was one of the Hasidim was one time in hospital for a serious surgery, a serious operation. And Erev Yom Kippur, the son of this Hasid went to the Lubavitcher Rebbe to receive lekach, to receive cake, honey cake, and a blessing for Yom Kippur. And he asked for a blessing for his father. And the Rebbe looked at him, and the Rebbe told him, Gemar Chatima Tova, to you and to your father, may you have a great year. And he said to him, tell your father that when he finishes the mission of which he was sent to the hospital, he'll be released. In other words, the Rebbe looked at it as this person, yes, he's sick, yes, he's in a crisis, but now that he's in a crisis, he's in the hospital, he needs to make the most of it, and he has a mission to fulfill, almost like God sent him to the hospital for a mission to fulfill. And after Yom Kippur, the Rebbe followed up, the Rebbe sent his secretary to ask the man, have you fulfilled your mission yet in the hospital? Years later, after this Chassid was released, and many, many years later, he actually passed away. So they asked him, his family said that there was a doctor there who the patient became very, very friendly with, and it was great to be with, and this guy became much, much closer to God and to Judaism and to spirituality. See, this was the Rebbe. In every moment, in every opportunity, there's something that you need to accomplish, something that you need to do. And this is the words of the Talmud where Shmuel said, Amarei Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda, shinen a sharp one, chtof ve'achol, grab and eat, chtof ve'ishti, grab and drink, de alma de azlinan mine, because the world that you're going from, the world that you are in, kehilula dami, it's compared to a wedding. And Rashi writes, im yesh lecha mamon le'anot, if you have money to enjoy, use it today. Don't wait till tomorrow, because who knows where you're going to be tomorrow. De alma de azlinan mine, because this world goes fast, just like a wedding. This is what he meant. Make use of every moment, of every day, no matter what life throws at you, no matter if you're isolated, no matter if you have the corona, no matter where God puts you, it's for a mission. As the Baal Shem Tov said, if a little leaf falls from the ground, falls from a tree and falls in a specific spot, it's by divine providence. Every single thing happens because God ordained it. So this corona happened because God ordained it, and the world is shut down because God wants it that way. Hopefully God wants the world to open up. I can't imagine that he won't, because this world is created, Adam le'amal yulad, man was created to work, so I can't imagine God doing anything but allowing us and making us work and opening up the world with health and happiness, but hopefully it's going to be a different world. I mentioned this story once, but the Kloisenberger Rebbe, he said, they asked him, what was the hardest day of the Holocaust for you? What was the hardest day? And he said, the day I was liberated. So they asked him, what do you mean the day you were liberated? Wasn't it the day that you lost your wife and 10 kids? His wife and 10 kids were gassed in the gas chambers. Well, what about the days that you were starving, that you were hungry, that you didn't have anything to eat, that you thought that you had typhus, that you saw all your friends and all your Hasidim decimated and destroyed? Wasn't that your hardest day? What do you mean the day you were liberated? Surely that should be your happiest day. And he said, what kept me going was that I knew the world wouldn't be the same when we came out of it. What kept me going was the belief that Mashiach is coming now. That this is all Chavlei Mashiach. That all the pain of the Holocaust is the pain before the arrival of Mashiach. So I knew that Mashiach's coming. So the hardest day for me was the day I was liberated, because I realized the Americans who are coming in their tanks are not Mashiach. They're not the Messiah. So I was let down. Of course, he continued and he was able to persevere and continue. But what we tell God is that the world that we're coming out into again cannot be the same. The world before coronavirus and the world after coronavirus cannot be the same. It has to be a different world. It has to be a better world. Not just the world, but me, myself, and I have to be a better person. I cannot be the same person who went into isolation. I cannot be the same person 6 weeks holed up in my own house without being able to move. I cannot be the same person, because what did I gain then? The Kotzker Rebbe used to say, he said, when I was young, I thought, I'm going to change the world. The Kotzker Rebbe was somebody who had tens of thousands of Hasidim. He changed a lot of people's lives. He said, when I was young, I thought I would change the entire world, make it better. When I grew a little bit older, I realized that to change the world is too much of an aspiration. It's too high. There was no way I could do that. So I thought, I'm going to change my town, my city. At least my city, I'll make it into a better city, a better place. At least that I'll do. When I grew even older, I realized that that's also impossible. So I said, the people who live on my block, those are the people I'm going to change. When I grew even older, I realized that's impossible as well. So I said, at least my children, my family, I'll change that. When I grew older, I realized that that's also impossible. The only person I can change is myself. So when he said, when I focused on changing myself, that's when I was able to make a change. That's when he was able to establish tens of thousands of Hasidim. You see, we can't change the world around us, but what we could do is change ourselves. And what we have to make sure, we have to ensure, is that God willing, very soon the economy is going to open up, the world's going to open up, and we have to make sure that the world that we go out into again will not be the same world. How do we ensure that? By making sure that we are changed. By making sure that we are not the same people. What does that mean practically? Take upon ourselves one small little mitzvah that we will do in honor of the coronavirus, in honor of our isolation. One little deed that we are going to do now, whether it's giving charity every day, whether it's putting on tefillin, whether it's studying more Torah. But one small little item that we will do, no matter what, we will do this. That is how we come out into the world, change people, better people, and that is how we are going to change the world and actually bring Mashiach. Have a wonderful evening. Hope you all enjoyed. Sei gesund.